Hello, everyone. Welcome back to The Victim's Voice. Our story today is one that has been all over social media lately. In July 2020, an 18-year-old boy gets hit by his own truck and dies in what people are calling a freak accident. The evidence at the scene told a different story, however, which has made suspicion fall on his father. Since the so-called accident, horrendous and disturbing information has come out about the boy's father from his ex-wife and daughter. They continue to fight for justice for their son and brother, along with justice for themselves. This is the story of the Solomon family. Angie Huffines' childhood was filled with abuse, both physical and mental. The abuse stemmed from her parents' firm beliefs as fundamentalist evangelical Christians. This religion holds extreme biblical beliefs that are very strict and very judgmental. They take biblical quotes such as spare the rod, spoil the child, literally. Angie was taught to be a woman that the fundamentalists considered biblical, someone who is meek, humble, obedient, and submits herself to her husband completely. This mindset is basically brainwashing of women to feel that they are unworthy to be treated with dignity and respect. Many times, this leads to abusive marriages to narcissistic men who think they are God, with the wife being the victim of mental and emotional abuse and at times physical abuse. Angie tried not to let those beliefs shape her young life. She excelled in singing and basketball and went on to college and got her doctorate in pharmaceuticals. She was doing well, and it seemed that the abuse from her past had not hindered her in any way, but had in fact made her stronger. In 2001, Angie was enjoying everything her hard work had brought her when she connected with a guy from high school named Aaron Solomon. She thought he could be what she needed to make her life complete. In fact, within 6 weeks of their first date, they got married because Angie found out that she was pregnant. Trouble started immediately after they got married. Aaron was being abusive, sexually violating Angie, and berating her constantly. On June 13th, 2002, their first child was born, a little boy that they named Grant Rhodes Huffine Solomon. Just 4 years later, in 2006, Grant was given a little sister named Gracie. They settled down into the influential neighborhood of Franklin in Tennessee. From the outside looking in, Aaron was a wonderful, loving husband and dad who worked as a news anchor and sports reporter for a news station out of Nashville, WSMV Channel 4. He excelled at his job and won several Emmys. Behind closed doors, however, Aaron was a completely different person. In 2008, when Grant and Gracie were 2 and 6, Angie discovered that Aaron was being unfaithful. He was having multiple affairs, grooming young girls, and even hiring prostitutes. She was determined to make her marriage work, however, and started seeking the help of a professional to manage the anxiety and stress caused by her marriage. But Aaron wouldn't let her go alone. He wanted to make sure she didn't say anything to anyone about the abuse that he was asserting on her and the kids. So he went to the appointments with her. Aaron did this when Angie went to other places also. He even went to the hair salon with her to make sure that she kept quiet. Dr. Fortrell, after a few sessions, diagnosed Angie with PTSD, and Aaron is having a sex addiction, which he never sought treatment for. In January 2011, although Aaron maintains that he left voluntarily to explore other opportunities, he was actually made to resign from the TV station after it was discovered he had inappropriate content on his work computer and his work phone. In June of 2012, Aaron's Aunt Ruth died and left him a multi-million-dollar trust. He didn't get the money right away. It would take a year for the funds to start being dispersed. Knowing that he was about to be a multimillionaire made Aaron feel in control and powerful, which made his abuse towards Angie escalate. And he started treating the children just as badly as he was treating his wife. He hurt them physically, emotionally, and psychologically, and was controlling and manipulative. By the end of 2012, Angie had started seeing Dr. Michael Reed, a psychiatrist, and was planning a way to escape from the torture she was enduring every day. She felt she could handle Aaron's abuse, but when she saw him start to abuse the children, that's when she knew she needed out of her marriage. Despite the horrid home life, Grant excelled in school and at baseball. At his memorial, he was called a passionate and fiercely competitive pitcher for his baseball team. By the time he was in high school, he already had Division I colleges scouting him. Both children attended Grace Christian Academy, starting in elementary school. It is a prestigious K through 12 grade school with a corresponding church called Grace Chapel. Grant was a kind, loving person and took pride in the protection he provided his mom and his sister. In January of 2013, Angie was still living in the house with Aaron. One night, the police were called over a domestic disturbance at the home. One of the EMTs who responded to the call gave an interview later and recalled what happened that night. He said when they arrived at the house, the Nashville police had already arrived and were inside the house. He and the other firefighters remained outside in the yard. He said Aaron came out of the house first and was cordial. He told them his wife was mentally ill and she had caused the trouble. When Angie and the kids came out of the house, however, Aaron's whole demeanor changed. He couldn't keep the nice guy act going any longer, and his true colors were shown. He became red in the face, and his facial expression showed that he was very angry and agitated and full of rage. He took a few steps towards Angie as if he was going to attack her, but was stopped by the police. As the firefighters and EMTs left the scene, they remarked, quote, "We know who the instigator in this incident is," end quote. They were referring to Aaron. Around this same time, Gracie, who was 5, had come to her mom and confided in her about something that her dad had been doing to her. She said when Aaron was giving her a bath, he would, quote, "put things up inside her," end quote. He would use his fingers as well as a bar of soap. Angie was shocked and sickened by what her daughter had told her. She confronted Aaron, and he had actually admitted it was true, but told her that if she told anybody about it, he would take the kids and she would never see them again. He told her between the money and the influence he had, there would be nothing that she could do. Angie, with the help of Dr. Reed, was working on a plan to escape the hold that Aaron had on them. She had to be careful how she did it, though, and make sure her and the children would be safe. Leaving a spouse is the most dangerous thing that an abuse victim can do. And when there are children involved, it's even scarier. Angie started taking notes on her phone. She would keep track of dates and times that Aaron would do things to her or Gracie. She also would make notes on how she was planning to get away from Aaron and things she had discussed in her sessions with Dr. Reed. Until one day she leaves the house to pick up the kids from school. She was running late and forgot her phone at home. While she was gone, Aaron got in her phone and went through everything and found her notes. He threw her phone in the toilet. In 2008, Aaron took a check from the desk of Kenny Dallas, who worked at the Grace Christian Academy, where his children went to school. He wrote the check for $1,100, made it out to himself, and forged the signature of Mindy Hicks, who was part of the school administration and had kids that went there also. The bank notified Mindy about the check. Since she was not authorized to sign checks at the school, it flew up a red flag at the bank. Mindy confronted Aaron, and he admitted to her and to Angie that he did forge the check. Even with him admitting he did it, no charges were ever filed against him. In fact, 8 years later, in 2021, Robbie Mason, the headmaster of Grace Chapel, wrote a statement saying that Aaron never stole funds from the school and that the money was owed to him. Aaron thought he had so much power and influence that he was untouchable, and it seemed to be true. Then came the moment Angie knew her marriage was over. She and the children had been locking themselves in the master bedroom to steer clear of Aaron's abusive outburst. This was the case on May 9th, 2014. Angie and Grant were in the master bedroom and had locked the door. This sent Aaron into a fit of rage, and around midnight he was able to get into the room. He then tried to strangle Angie with the cord of a hairdryer. Grant had witnessed the whole thing, but at that time neither Grant nor Angie told anyone. Angie wanted to protect her son from Aaron, who he was terrified of, and she didn't want him to have to testify in court against him. Aaron did this the day before the funds from the trust his aunt left him were scheduled to start being dispersed into his account. The very next day after the attack, Angie takes the kids to school and accompanies them on a field trip. When she gets back home, she found Aaron, his parents, and her parents in their house. They had staged an intervention on her. They forced her to go to TriStar Centennial Parthenon Pavilion, a psychiatric hospital in Nashville. They had already talked to them and told them that Angie was suffering with suicidal ideations and had tried to hang herself. Both sets of parents came along for support, but they seemed to believe Aaron's story over anything Angie told them. Angie's own father said to her, quote, "Husbands can do whatever they want to their wives," end quote. Aaron's story was a little bit different. He acknowledged that his family had started sleeping in one room without him. He said the reason was because Gracie had a procedure done on her eye, so she was sleeping with Angie, and Grant was sleeping in there to keep Gracie company. When it came to the part about him trying to strangle her, he switched it around and said she had tried to commit suicide by hanging herself from the shower head with an electrical cord. It would be rather hard to hang yourself from a shower head that's lower than you and not exactly load bearing, but that's the story he stuck with. When Angie got to the hospital, she confided in a doctor that she wasn't suicidal and that her husband had tried to kill her. Thank God the doctor believed her. He could tell that she wasn't the person Aaron had described her to be. The doctor stated in his report, quote, "It does not appear that there is any evidence that the patient tried to hang herself, and I do not believe that she is in an acute mood state that would lead to suicide," end quote. It was also noted that, quote, "the patient was telling the truth about the situation and that she was in a risky situation with her husband, who appeared to possibly be volatile and violent, although this was uncertain. The patient's parents also appeared to be unreliable sources of information," end quote. The chart indicated that Angie had no signs of depression and did not voice suicidal ideations. The admitting physician, Michael Murphy, MD, according to the chart, spoke to Angie's outpatient psychiatrist, who stated that the plan was to move Angie out of the house safely and obtain a divorce. They also confirmed with the outpatient psychiatrist that Angie had not had a previous suicide attempt. They kept her overnight at the hospital for protection from Aaron and her parents. And the next day, Angie left there and went to the courthouse and was awarded a restraining order against Aaron. When Angie returned home, her worst nightmare had come true. Aaron had taken the kids and was not answering any of her calls or texts. She had no clue where Grant or Gracie were or if they were okay. She called friends of Aaron's and even his parents, but no one would answer her. As if things couldn't get any worse, the next day was Mother's Day and Angie had no clue when and if she would see her kids. Angie called her parents, but they were no help at all. After telling him she was scared for her life and that of his grandchildren, her father, with his fundamentalist views, had the audacity to tell his daughter that he would pay for a lawyer to lift the restraining order that she had against Aaron, but he would not help pay for a divorce. Days went by and Angie still had no clue where her children were, so she decided to report their kidnapping to the police. At first, Nashville police seemed to take her claim very seriously, but that all changed after a higher up connection of Aaron's contacted them, and Angie was told that there was nothing that they could do for her. 6 days after Aaron tried to strangle her, Angie contacted a lawyer for help. This is when she found out that Aaron had not just spoken to a divorce lawyer, but had already filed for divorce and filed for an order of protection against Angie for him and the kids. Aaron finally came home the next day, but without the kids. He told her she wasn't going to see them, and then he called the police again and told them she was mentally ill and suicidal. When they got there, they realized Aaron was full of shit and that Angie was not mentally ill or suicidal, so they left. Angie still had no clue where her children were. Gracie also graduated kindergarten around this time from Grace Christian Academy, and Angie was not allowed to go to the ceremony. On May 26, 2013, Aaron returns to the home with the kids and with Angie's parents. He told her if she would lift the restraining order that she had gotten and behave according to his expectations, then he and the kids would move back home. Of course, Angie agreed and she dropped the restraining order. She would do anything to be with her children and try to protect them. The very next day, however, Aaron was up to his manipulative tricks again. He got the kids up at 5 a.m. and got them to the car by telling them that they were going to get apple fritters for their mom. They went to Donut Den and got donuts, but then Aaron started driving in the opposite direction of their house. When Grant realized that they weren't going home, he tried to jump out of the car, according to Gracie's recollection. Aaron grabbed his wrist so hard that Grant thought he had broken it. On June 21st, 2013, Angie and Aaron appeared in court in front of Judge Philip E. Smith, who was presiding over their divorce hearing. This is when he became legally able to keep the children from Angie. Aaron's attorneys, David Scott and Michael Parsley, were, of course, trying to argue that Angie suffered from mental illness and was unstable. The judge didn't believe the statements made by the hospital that Angie was not suicidal, but being abused. Aaron managed to get Angie's own father to testify against her and her sister to write a statement on Aaron's behalf. Judge Smith excluded the testimonies of the 3 medical professionals that were in Angie's favor and said he wanted her to undergo an evaluation by a doctor of his choosing. That doctor, Dr. Freeman, also ruled in Angie's favor. He said she was a loving, caring, and capable mother, but in the end, it didn't matter at all. The judge also excluded that report, the report that he asked for. The judge also dismissed the claims that Aaron had tried to strangle her, saying, quote, "I don't believe you. I do believe you tried to commit suicide," end quote. He decided that Aaron deserved full custody of Grant and Gracie, and to top it all off, he ordered Angie to pay child support to Aaron, knowing that Aaron had just inherited millions of dollars. Several sources have confirmed that one of Aaron's lawyers, Scott Parsley, was rather friendly with Judge Smith, and Parsley had even donated $1,000 to Judge Smith's campaign, even though he ran unopposed in both the primary and general election that year, and never held a single campaign event. On October of 2013, Angie had not seen the kids since June. She is lost on what to do, so she writes an email to her counselor. She knew she needed to document all the ways that Aaron had abused, hurt, and manipulated her and the kids if she ever wanted to get them back. Finally, in February 2014, Aaron let Angie see the kids for the first time since June of 2013. Gracie looked horrible. She had lost weight and had deep dark circles around her eyes. She wasn't the same Gracie Angie had known 8 months before. Angie was horrified to learn that Aaron was rationing the food that they ate and was still bathing Gracie, even though she was old enough to bathe herself. By the end of 2014, Aaron still had custody of the kids, and Angie was getting very limited time with her children. He refused to let Angie see the kids on holidays or to go to her house and spend time with her. He did allow her to go to some of their sporting events and watch them. During a basketball game in November of 2014, Gracie was allowed to sit with Angie. She tells her mom that her father is still putting soap inside of her and it stings. Angie, knowing that Aaron will deny everything, pulls out her phone and records part of the conversation. She knew if she ever wanted to get Grant and Gracie back, she was going to have rock solid evidence of his abuse. That December 2014 was a devastating one for the kids. It was the second Christmas in a row that Aaron had not let them see their mom. Gracie FaceTimed her mom, obviously distraught, with puffy eyes and tears running down her face. She knew there was no point in running away again. Aaron would just send the sheriff to pick them up and bring them back to the monster that is her father. She felt like she was trapped. During a family trip, Gracie managed to FaceTime Angie without Aaron knowing. She showed Angie some bruises on the inside of her thighs, but says she doesn't remember how they got there. Aaron tried to write it off as it being a rash from her swimming suit. Aaron was getting nervous about Angie and Gracie discussing the abuse that he was putting her through. So in April of 2015, he went to court and had Angie arrested for failing to pay her child support. Aaron was a millionaire, so he definitely didn't need the money. It was a way to separate Angie from the kids and pressure her to stay silent. Aaron was using his money and connections to control Angie and the kids. And it was only going to continue and get worse. After Angie was thrown in jail, she was terrified and felt helpless when it came to protecting her children at this point. From 2015 to early 2018, almost 3 years, Angie and the kids did their best to appease Aaron and keep each other safe. During this time, Aaron had complete control over Angie and the kids. In 2018, some of Angie's friends who knew about the abuse she and the kids had suffered at the hands of Aaron told her to talk to the officials at Grant and Gracie's school. She talked to the headmaster, Robbie Mason, and the founder of the school. Both told Angie there was nothing they could do. The private school that Gracie and Grant went to was ran on donations from the prestigious families that attended. Aaron had made huge donations to the school, which gives him connections within. Judge Diana Johnson and her husband, State Senator Jack Johnson, go to the church. Bill Lee, the governor of Tennessee, is also a member. Even though they know each other, Diana Johnson never recuses herself from any of the court proceedings that involved the Solomons. In May 2018, Angie found out he had been grooming young girls, several of which attended Grace Christian Academy with Grant and Gracie. He would take pictures of girls at their different sporting events. Then he would ask Grant for the girls' Snapchats, using the excuse he wanted to send them the pictures that he took. He would also show up at the school at random times and take Gracie out of class. And while he was there, he would talk to some of the girls that he had taken pictures of. Angie met with Sheriff Jeff Long from the Williamson County Sheriff's Office and made him aware of Aaron's behavior towards the girls at Grace Chapel. Jeff Long assigned Tamika Sanders to the case. She soon realizes the severity of the abuse going on with Gracie, on top of the girls he was grooming. She schedules a forensic interview for Gracie at Davis House, a child advocacy center. 6 months later, Jeff Long is promoted to the commissioner for the Department of Safety and Homeland Security by Grace Chapel member Governor Bill Lee. On May 8, 2018, Grant met with Steve Berger, the pastor of Grace Chapel, until recently. Berger says in his own statement that Grant came to talk to him about, quote, growing closer to God, end quote, when in reality, Grant came there to talk about the abuse his family was suffering from. On May 16th, Angie emailed one of the church elders, Kurt Beasley. She told him, quote, I am concerned for the lives of myself and my children, end quote. He responds by saying there is nothing he can do. The first week of June, Angie met with another church elder and the pastor of the church. She told them of the abuse her and her kids were enduring, and instead of calling DCS or the police, they prayed over her and anointed her with oil. These people are mandated reporters. It is their duty to report suspected abuse to the proper authorities. Everyone this family turns to is turning a blind eye, and it's not okay. They all need to be held accountable for their actions. In June of 2018, Angie sent Lieutenant Tamika Sanders a copy of the recording she made on November 18, 2014, where Gracie tells her Aaron is sticking soap inside of her. The next month, Grant and Gracie go to the Davis house to give their forensic interviews with a social worker and Tamika Sanders. DCS was called after the interview. When Tamika called them, they told her not to investigate further. She chose to listen to DCS over Grant and Gracie. Around this time, Grant and Gracie, who are 12 and 16 now, run away again from Aaron's house to the safety of their mother. Aaron sent 2 sheriff's deputies to Angie's house, and they said that Aaron wanted them to ride in the police car instead of their mom bringing them back so that they would learn not to disobey again. Aaron would do anything to show Angie he was in charge and had control. It was after this that Angie filed an emergency custody hearing within the courts. The courts appointed a guardian ad litem for the upcoming hearing. In August of 2018, Grant had a baseball tournament in Cary, North Carolina. Aaron said that he and Gracie had to be in Nashville the next day for the emergency court hearing, so they stopped at a hotel on the way for the night. Aaron got a 1 hotel room with 1 bed. Gracie begged and pleaded with him to get a room with 2 beds, but he wouldn't. She said she was nervous to even enter the hotel room. That night, her father held her down and raped her. Gracie later describes what happened that night in a video that she and Angie posted to social media in hopes that people would see it and help them. It is disgusting what her father did to her. I'm going to play the audio from the YouTube video that Gracie made to get her story out at the end of this episode. There you will hear from her what horrible things that she has had to endure in her short life. At the court hearing the next day, after the horrible night in the hotel with her father, the judge refused to hear Gracie's testimony and ordered Grant and Gracie to stay with Aaron. The very next day after her father had raped her, she had to go to court and hear that she has to remain with her abuser. Immediately after court, Aaron took Gracie and was heading back to North Carolina to pick up Grant. Gracie appeared so terrified that the guardian ad litem gave her a business card with her personal phone number written on the back and told her to call anytime. Gracie later said she remembered her father saying to her, quote, if we don't do what the courts say, the police might come and take your mom to prison. You guys are breaking the rules, end quote. Aaron would say or do anything to manipulate his children and Angie.